I want to start, ladies and gentlemen, by telling you one thing. I used to be a thief. I can suddenly see some of you just checking your pockets now. And don't worry, though, not the kind of thief that you might be thinking. I want to ask a question, a little bit of audience participation, if I may. Can I just ask, how many of you are rich? But before you put your hands up, I'm talking real rich. I'm talking Sunday Times richly rich. You know, I've asked that question many times, and I've never had a hand raised yet. But I do live in hope that one day I will find a rich backer for the work I do. One day. My name is Lawrie. And I was born in a beautiful market town in North Yorkshire called Richmond. I don't even know it. It's a stunning little town. I was born into a family of 7 children. And I can tell you we were poor. I mean, we were poor. And I'm talking bread and butter poor. And my mum worked her finger to the bone to feed us. I left school early. All my grades were marked DNA. Now, that's not some fancy grading system. That actually stands for did not attend. I left school early, and I had 2 options: to work in one of the 3 factories in the town or to join the British Army. I chose the latter. You weren't putting me in no factory. I matured very quickly in the army and went from boy to man very quickly. But whilst my time in the army, I always realised one thing. I needed an education. I learned very quickly that people with an education, just more options open up to them. So I left the army many years later, and I managed to get onto a course at Bradford University. 4 years later, I achieved my goal. There I was, with my shiny new education and my disciplined army background, going out into the world to make my millions. How could I fail? How could I fail? Let me tell you how life can have you riding high on the tidal wave of success 1 minute and leave you absolutely destitute the next. After I finished university, I started a business. 3 years into that business, and I won Best Small Business in the Customer Sector Service nationally. Now, I know what you're thinking. I sold the business and made millions. If that was the case, this would now be the quickest TED Talk in history. But alas, it wasn't. In 2004, I found myself battling meningitis, and I spent a long time in hospital. It was a tough time. I went through recuperation and came out the other end having lost everything. I'd lost the business. Oh, God, it was a crazy time. And to make things worse, I was homeless, living in the changing rooms of an abandoned swimming pool. Crazy time in life. Life was really bad then. I could never, at that point, imagine how life was going to take me on a journey that would test my physical and emotional state in the extreme. Life was really bad. I slowly turned my life around. I afforded a bedsit, got a job labouring, doing bits and bats on the side here. Life was getting back on track. Really, all I really wanted was to be like everybody else. I didn't want to be special, but I didn't want to be homeless. I just want to be like everybody else. Have a nice house, a decent job, 2.4 children, a wife, a rescue puppy, and maybe, just maybe, an annual holiday. Just maybe. Life was getting back on track. Some years later, I found myself on holiday with my little daughter, Ruby. I was about 6 at the time. And I'm laid on this sunbed, reflecting on the journey I've been through and thinking, I've come out of it. This is great, I've come out of it. And there I am, laid on the sunbed on the sunny island of Lanzarote, My daughter playing in the pool with her newfound friends. And I decided, because I could, to wander to the poolside bar for yet another ice cream. Life was good. Being next to be served at the ice cream parlor bar, I noticed my attention was drawn to a television behind the bar. In that moment, that one single moment, I realized I had been a thief all my life, taking from life what I could take and giving nothing back. And I think a lot of people don't even realize they are thieves of life. Take, and give nothing back. My attention was drawn to the television. And on the screen behind that bar, I saw that photograph. You know the one that changed the world, the one that made people stare, the one that made people cry. That photograph for me changed my life. Now, many people saw this photograph and were they were saddened, they were disgusted, they were unhappy, they talked about it. But they saw a photograph. Many people were moved into action on the back of this photograph. I didn't see a photograph. I saw a little boy. I looked at his fingers, his ears, his tiny feet, his hair. And then I tried to imagine his last 4 minutes of conscious life, being rolled around and tossed around in a freezing cold sea at night time, screaming out, "Mama, Papa!" What's going on? This boy has made only one mistake in his life. He lost the birth lottery. And so my journey to the rich list began. I decided in that moment that I had to do everything I could to help children in refugee camps around the world. Thank you. Using social media, within a week, I collected enough donations, warm clothing, shoes, tents, and I was on my way to the Calais jungle to save the world. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to save every child in the world. And the truth is, one person working alone cannot save the world. Tried it. To be honest, it got me in a spot of bother, facing 5 years in prison on smuggling charges. As I like to call them, rescuing little girl charges. I'd kind of adopted, not call it adopted, but I'd taken under my wing this 4-year-old lone child who I knew had family in the UK. And I wanted to reunite them. The trouble is, they were in the UK and she was lost in Europe. I had a hidden sleeping compartment and she was going to be okay. But does anybody know how bloody good those sniffer dogs are? So there I was, facing a 6-month court case, spending time in prison in France. Have you ever seen the Banged Up Abroad? I love that program. I didn't think I'd be there one day. But I tell you something, with time on your hands in a cell, and you've got nothing going on but a 6-month court case, it gives you a person time to think. And I devised a way forward, how I could have helped as many children as I can. One thing I noticed in camps was footwear. Many child refugees, many refugees have walked and travelled hundreds, and in many cases, thousands of miles. And I thought, I can make a difference here. I saw shoes with toes sticking out the end, no soles, cold feet. And I thought, I'm going to start a program that supplies socks and waterproof shoes and boots to child refugees. That's what I've been doing ever since. For 5 years, I've travelled Europe many different refugee camps working with children putting shoes on their feet. Now, it's got to be said that on social media, I kind of turned into Bob Geldof. Send me your monies. And I have no problem asking for money. And people did. There's people in the audience today that I know that have sent me money, and they have bought shoes. And I take a photograph of every pair of feet and every pair of shoes that goes onto a child's feet. And I put those pictures on social media, and I send those pictures to the person who has sent money. And there's people all over the world helping me do this. I've used these photographs to let you know how relevant this is today. These photographs have been taken across Europe in the last month. I was working in a refugee camp just this week. I actually arrived back in the UK yesterday. And let me tell you, Trenchfoot is very much alive. The usual picture you see in the media of young black men running from the police is not what I see. What I see is very young children drinking out of puddles to quench their thirst and living in tents. And I hope that upsets you, because that's the object of my talk. This is real, and this is happening now. I wish I could stand here and tell you all about all the donors that helped me out. But I'd like you to meet Lulu and Mimi. Lulu and Mimi are my heroes. I've never had the pleasure of meeting Lulu and Mimi, but when they see me in action on my adventures in the camps, they set up in the kitchen and they start selling their homemade lemonade, £1 a glass. Now, I've got to say, right there is living evidence of the North-South divide. Because in Yorkshire, people will walk past unless it were 30p a glass. £1 a glass. They PayPal the money to me. I then spend that money that day on children desperately needing footwear, warm socks, sleeping bags, or even a tent to put up in a muddy field. Lulu and Mimi are my heroes. I just want to tell you about this little girl here. This little girl, you might think that's a staged photograph. To bring the reality home to you of what's going on, this photograph, I found this child 1 month ago in Moria camp in Greece. I picked her up and I went looking for her parents. 10 hours later, I realized she was a lone child refugee. Her parents presumed drowned in the Aegean Sea. This photograph was taken 1 month ago. I named her Abigail. She's now safe. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can support me on social media, even to spread awareness, please look out for me. I would like to now leave you with a very short 49-second video that basically explains, in a nutshell, what I do. What I do, I'm showing this now. There's lots of children in the camp at the moment, and where's his shoes? Where's the shoes he had? His old shoes.
It's the old one.
This old one. And this guy, most of them are walking around in shoes like this, and with your money, all I do is bring them to my friend Roman. Say hello, Roman.
Hi.
Intersport, and we have a cracking deal on these. So these are work out about €12, and the kids like this go from these. Come on, buddy.
Thank you. It's good? 5. 5. By 5.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the basic principle. You send me money, I buy shoes. And Roman helps me. Say bye-bye, Roman.
See you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.